Let's suppose that I started walking to Canada from the Dallas area. And after, I don't know, maybe 2 years, I got to Canada. But I get to Canada, I rent myself a house, but I decide this is too cold. I don't want to be here. The winters are terrible. All this snow, I thought snow was pretty. In Dallas, we got it maybe once every couple of years. Now we're getting it all winter long every year. And so I say, I've got to get back to Dallas. What do I do? Well, assuming I don't have the money for a bus ticket or an airplane flight or don't have a car, I have to just turn around and start walking back. I won't get there immediately, but if I just keep on walking and retrace my steps, so to speak, I will probably get there. Well, that's the idea behind this challenge of beating diabetes by Christmas. We're going to start a new challenge. These challenges have been tremendously successful, and many people have reported that they have found victory. And each time we do a challenge, I'm just thinking to myself, it's a lot of work. I send out emails and I put together different videos for you to watch, and I create videos myself and give links to other people. It's extra work for me for sure, but we see such good results, and I thought, what I need to do is to kind of create a book from some of the principles and maybe stop the challenges and just sell the book. I don't know. I don't know where this will go. This could be the last challenge. It may not be. Who knows? But we are going to do one for this fall of 2023, starting in September 1. And the idea is that you would become non-diabetic by Christmas, December 25 of this same year, 2023. That's a little under 4 months. When I say non-diabetic, I know people will argue and some will get all red in the face and decide that I am just a fanatic because nobody can become non-diabetic once you are diabetic. What I'm talking about is getting your numbers below the diabetic standard of 6.5 as an A1C. So if your A1C is 7, 8, 10, 12, 14, and by Christmas Day you get an A1C of under 6.5, you have become non-diabetic by the numbers. And chances are any kind of symptoms you've had are starting to retreat if they haven't fully retreated by that point. So that's the goal. Become non-diabetic. Surprise your doctor by showing up sometime after Christmas or maybe at the beginning of the new year and him finding out you've gone from an A1C of 8 or 9 to an A1C of 5.9 or 6.2, whatever it happens to be. Can it be done? I mean, the ultimate question is, can it be done? The answer, you better believe it can, so many times. Now, obviously, I can't guarantee it. I know many people have done it. I know most people can do it. There may be some exceptions where it's just going to be hard for you to get there in that amount of time. And if so, extend the period. But basically what I've done is put together some guidelines of how you're going to eat. I encourage you to exercise, but that's not the main thrust of this challenge. The thrust is to change your eating lifestyle, your diet, your habits, your window of eating. Change it all into a diabetes-crushing diet and lifestyle, and watch those numbers go down. And while you're doing it, test yourself and discover that you're seeing victory. That will give you so much motivation. That's why I just encourage people to test for the motivation factor. And the idea is, this is working. Once you get that, you are going to be almost impossible to stop. So let me just share a few thoughts about this. There's one thing I've noticed is that most people that do this Beat Diabetes plan, this Beat Diabetes challenge, they don't even follow it to the letter and they still get results. In other words, I give you so much ammunition and such a powerful lifestyle change that even if you're not perfect in following it, you'll still get pretty good results. Let me give you an example. One of the things I feel is so vitally important is I send you an email, usually every week, and I give you links of videos to watch, my own and those of others like Dr. Jason Fung and Becky Gillespie and Ken Berry, different ones. And I have a way of tracking how many actually click on those links. And to my horror, I hate to say this, but to my horror and dismay, over half don't even click on the links. So I don't know quite what they're doing, but somehow, even though they don't watch the videos, many of them are still seeing success. Now, my desire for you, if you're going to follow this plan and follow this challenge, and there is no cost to it, let me just say, but if you're going to follow this challenge, do it as close as you can to the letter, and you'll see the best results. But sometimes I look at that and I'm thinking, well, they're not clicking on these links I'm sending. I mean, about 25% are, 75% are not even clicking on a single link, usually after I've looked at it for a week or two. And I'm like, why not? I don't know. I mean, obviously some would answer, I don't have time. But believe me, if you don't have time to beat diabetes, something's wrong there. I mean, that should be such a powerful priority in your life. So my goal, my desire, my prayer is that you would follow this as close as you can. The diet, the window of eating, watching the videos, all of this will work together like dynamite to blow up the monster of diabetes and enable you to see victory. Think about what a Christmas present you will give yourself if you can be non-diabetic by Christmas. And there's a way to check your A1C using a glucose meter, and I give you 5 different random times in the day to take a blood sugar test and then average it out, divide by 5, plug it into a formula, and you can see what your current A1C is if you keep at that level for the next 3 or 4 months. Even though if you took an A1C at a lab at that point, it might not reflect such a good number because it's going to jump back 3 months, sometimes 4, to let you know how you're doing with your sugar levels. But when you do it with a glucose meter and you average it out, plug it into a formula, it's basically saying if you can be a good boy and a good girl and stay at this level for the next 3 months, this is what kind of A1C you will get. And that's the kind of test we want to take at Christmas. And I'm convinced the great majority will find success if they'll be true to follow the guidelines. So, how do you sign up for this challenge? Well, it's very simple. You just send me an email, grace@spiritofgrace.org, and write the words "Count me in." I don't need your life story. If you want to share something, I'll read it. But unless I have Benedicta adding these emails, and sometimes she will help me out with that. In fact, most times she will. And so I don't always get to read everything. Sometimes she reads it, but one of us will probably read it. In any case, send an email, grace@spiritofgrace.org, and write the words "Count me in" the subject line. You don't have to put anything in the body, in the text, in the email itself, but in the subject line, "Count me in." That's all. And we'll add you to the list, and you'll be getting the emails on a weekly basis as much as I can do it. And I think last time I pretty much did it every week. And you'll be given links, you'll be given encouragement, you'll have a way to follow some of the things I'm sharing and some of the testimonies, and you'll be given a diet. And we're going to give you more freedom than we have in the past. In the past, I was more specific and said on Thursday you eat this, on Friday you eat that. It's going to be a little bit more general, but it's still going to be very strict in terms of low carb. Behind this challenge, and let me just tell you what it involves, and you don't even have to sign up if you just want to do it on your own. It's going to be this. You're going to cut down to 2 meals a day. You're going to stop eating 3 meals a day. You're going to cut down to 2. Now, that third meal, whether it be you skip the breakfast and eat the next 2, or you skip the dinner and eat breakfast and lunch, that third meal where you don't really eat, you can still have some bulletproof coffee or bulletproof tea. That will give you a little bit of nourishment, a little sense of being filled with something, and yet you're not going to hardly move your blood sugar at all. And this time I'm going to be a little more generous with you, a little more liberal. I'm going to allow you, if you have to, I'm going to encourage you not to, but if you really feel you need to, I'm going to allow for the eating of 2 boiled eggs or maybe some bacon. Basically, some kind of a food that just will hardly touch your blood sugar. I would prefer the bulletproof coffee, Better still would be not even to have that. But since I have bulletproof coffee on the meal that I don't eat every day, I would be a hypocrite to tell you not to do it. So that's why I always allow bulletproof coffee. And if you say, well, that's just not even going to be enough, Dennis, then in that case, have a couple of boiled eggs. They're not going to touch your blood sugar much at all. And now, if you're on diabetic meds, you may not be able to skip that third meal at all. Or if you're on insulin, you're going to almost have to adjust the insulin for sure, because you're going to go from maybe a standard diet or a semi-standard diet down to a very low-carb diet. You can't keep on taking the insulin. So if you're taking insulin right now and you want to be a part of this challenge, you talk to your doctor. If you don't do that, don't sign up. Don't have anything to do with this, because it could be dangerous. You cannot take the same amount of insulin that you did before when you're eating lots of carbs and a high or a medium carb diet and go down to a low carb diet. You just can't do it. So you talk to your doctor and you watch it and you test yourself frequently in those early stages until you get things figured out. You be sure and you check your blood sugar frequently. Again, there will be such euphoria when you see the numbers going down. You find your fasting glucose, what you wake up in the morning with, is getting better. It's improving. And you take those 5 random blood sugar tests throughout the day, you average it out and plug it into a formula that I'll share in the emails. And you find that your A1C is going to be so much better than it was a month ago, 2 months. I've said it before, we see people sending in testimonies of they're almost shocked to find how significantly they've improved in 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks, that's when the testimonies start pouring in. Well, if not pouring, trickling. They get bigger as the days go by. But we always get testimonies. Never have we done these challenges without getting testimonies. So think of this. Right now, as I record this, it is in August 2023. And if you start September 1, I will say this, you are more likely than not to get under the diabetic numbers by Christmas 2023, 4 months' time, just under 4 months. Can't guarantee it, but based on my experience with these challenges, talking to and communicating with, responding to comments with, hearing testimonies of, interviewing diabetics, I mean, there are very few doctors that interact with diabetics at the level that I do. I'm not a doctor, granted. I'm not claiming to be a doctor, not claiming to know more than the doctors know, but I'll tell you one thing. I probably talk to more diabetics, interview more diabetics, interact with more diabetics, read comments of diabetics, more diabetics than most doctors would. Because doctors can see maybe 20, 25 patients a day, but most of them are not going to be diabetics unless they're an endocrinologist. Then they may mostly be diabetics. Anyway, not trying to brag, just saying, I've got a lot of experience with diabetes. I mean, not only was I at that threshold, but I've talked to thousands and I've interviewed testimony after testimony after testimony. Some people will say, oh no, your plan won't work. Your plan will not work. What you have to do is cut that fat. And if you're still diabetic, then cut the fat some more. Because we all know that fat causes diabetes. Eating fat causes diabetes. You eat a big old marbled steak with lots of fat in it, well, you're just turning yourself into a diabetic. Well, that's nonsense. And I know it's nonsense. I know that cutting carbs and sugars, a low-carb diet, narrow window of eating, 2 meals per day, 6-hour window, that's part of the guidelines on this challenge. If you'll do it for 4 months, 2 meals a day, low carb, no snacks in between those meals, and that third meal, bulletproof coffee perhaps, which means you put in about a tablespoon of butter and some cream in your coffee, or if you need to, a couple of boiled eggs and some coffee. You do that, and one of the other guidelines is you take one day as a carnivore day, where everything's carnivore. You don't have to do a carnivore diet. I don't encourage people to do that, but I encourage everybody to have a carnivore day, 1 day a week. You do that, and you are far more likely, in my experience, to become non-diabetic in 4 months' time than you are to not reach that goal. Some will not reach it. I will not pretend to say every single person will reach it. Most will if they'll follow the guidelines. That's my belief. And if you say, well, I'm not so sure about that, Dennis, I think you may be wrong. Well, why don't you try it? If you've just been diagnosed, what do you really have to lose? Basically, my friends, what we're talking about is an investment. You're investing 4 months of your life. Now, if you live to be 80 years old, you've got a lot of 4-month periods. I don't know how many that would be. You've got 3 4-month periods per year, so that'd be 240 4-month periods, if I'm thinking right. Hard to always calculate on camera. But a whole bunch of 4-month periods of your life you've already lived. I'm saying take one little scrawny 4-month period of your life and invest a change. And invest changing your diet, your lifestyle. Because your doctor's telling you you're diabetic. You know that it's not a good thing. It's not a healthy thing. It's a dangerous lifestyle. It's a dangerous affliction that could take your eyesight, destroy your kidneys, put you on dialysis, and do all kinds of terrible things to you. You could get toes cut off, feet cut off, legs cut off. And you could be running in and out of the hospital the last 10, 12 years of your life with all kinds of afflictions. If you could avoid that by investing in a 4-month period and just saying, I'm going to see if this works. And of course, we've got testimony after testimony. The critics that say, Dennis, that won't work, if I was in court being tried for being a deceiver or a deluder, I could bring out testimony after testimony after testimony. It kind of reminds me of the story, Miracle on 34th Avenue, the Christmas story, where this little old man says he's Santa Claus and everybody else thinks he's crazy and they're going to put him into an insane asylum or put him into an institution. And his lawyer, trying to defend him, shows the court and the judge, well, we've got like 3 letters where people actually wrote to Santa Claus and the post office delivered to him. So if the post office thinks this guy's Santa Claus, he must be. The judge said, well, 3 letters, that's nothing. He says, well, we've got more evidence. The judge says, well, let's see it. He says, are you sure? The judge says, yeah. So he says, all right, bring it in. And one post office worker after another, I didn't count how many there were, maybe a dozen. They're bringing in huge bags of letters, one over their shoulder, dragging one along. They dump it all on the judge's desk until the letters are so high, he has to raise himself up just to look over all the letters. Thousands of letters. And the lawyer defending this guy, little old guy who says he's Santa, and says the post office delivered all these letters. Is that enough evidence that he must be Santa Claus? And the judge lets him off. It says, well, if the post office says he's Santa Claus, he must be. Well, I could do that with victories over diabetes. I could present case after case, testimony after testimony. All you have to do is go to some of my uploads. Just go to my list of videos I posted. And look for the ones where it's an interview, where I've got the face of somebody else on there besides me. Those are usually the interviews. And not only that, but just read the comments under almost any video. And people will be saying, well, I was 12.0 and last A1C is 5.5. I mean, they're all over the place. I mean, I could just present them. I could bore you to death, bore you to tears with all the testimonies I could share. I'm holding back, folks. I could share twice as many, 3 times as many. I could just spend hours with testimony after testimony and bore you to death. But I won't do that. But I will share enough to let you know this works. Maybe there's other ways to do it. I think this is the best way. I know it's the fastest way, and I know it works. So what we're saying is with this challenge, and you can sign up for this challenge, so you'll start getting the emails and get the diet. Just send an email to grace@spiritofgrace.org and write "Count me in" on the subject line. This may be the last challenge, may not, but I'm hoping to write a book about it and put it all in a book and offer it to people. And yeah, I'll sell it. It's not going to be free, but hopefully, if you spend $18 or $20 on a book and it sets you free from diabetes, God uses it that way. Well worth it. But this challenge is free, no cost at all. grace@spiritofgrace.org. Count me in on the subject line. Just a few basic guidelines and a lot of encouragement. Let me say that again. A few basic guidelines. Yeah, it'll be a change from how you've been eating and the lifestyle you've had, because that's what got you to Canada. That's what got you to the land of diabetes. You've got to reverse and go back the other way. So yeah, of course there'll have to be a change. Of course there will. But you can get there, my friend. Almost anybody can get there. Type 1s can get there. Now they still have to take insulin, but they won't have to take that much, and they can have well-controlled glucose. And type 2s, most can get there usually within 4 to 6 months. So can't guarantee anything, but I can say based on my experience, you are much more likely to get under that 6.5 A1C by Christmas than you are not to. If you don't, well, you can't ask me for your money back because I didn't charge anything. What I would say is stay with the program a couple of more months and see where that goes. If you say, man, I've been doing it 6 months, 8 months, a year, and I haven't made any progress at all, well, maybe check out some other system or some other lifestyle. But we have heard of some people that went a year and a year and a half, couple of years, but they were just faithful, and eventually their faithfulness paid off, trusting the process and trusting God to work through the process. So another challenge, folks, starting with September, but I'll start sending out emails very soon and encouraging you, sharing what you need. And you'll be joining with others who are saying, I want to be non-diabetic. I want my number one Christmas gift this year to be an A1C below 6.5. If you've recently been diagnosed with diabetes and you've just discovered this channel, let me recommend that you go to our Uploads page, which will give you access to every diabetic video we've posted since we began. As you work your way through all our videos, I believe you'll find the help you need. A link to our Uploads page is in the description.